Hey there, thanks for joining in on this Resonations. Today I actually have more of a question and would love some insight from anybody who feels like responding back. In January, I went with a group of friends that I don't get to see very often and are from all around the world. We went to a location to do some writing. And while we were there, I was introduced to this game called Totem. Now, it was one of the most feel good games I've ever played in my life. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So let me explain a little bit about what the game is and how it is, and then maybe get some feedback because of some pieces around wondering about cultural sensitivity and making sure that people understand the depth of what it is that they're doing when they're talking about totems and spirit animals. So with this game, there are animal cards and there are quality cards. And what you do as the dealer, you give out 7 animal cards to each of the people who was playing. So there were 5 of us who were playing. And the people who each had their cards would hold up the 7. They would read what it says on these cards. So this one is a zebra and it says, "You always see the bright side." This one is a woodpecker and it says, "You always manage to break through where others would have quit." So each of the people at the table went through and selected the card that they think best represented me based on what they know about me and our interactions over the years. Then they put the other 6 cards at the bottom of the deck and slide over anonymously the card that they picked for me. I mix the cards up, I take a look at them, and I place them in order in front of me on the left-hand side, the one that I see the least in myself to the one on the right being the one that I most closely identify with and I feel that way about myself. So I turn them over from left to right. And as I turn them over, the person's who card that was explains the story behind why they felt that card best suited me. Now, these are all uplifting, and it was really amazing and very inspiring to hear how other people felt and what they remembered after interactions with me over a number of years. What ends up happening then is that the rest of the people, after hearing the story, pick one of those cards for you to be part of your totem. And so you don't get to select it, but they do. And so you hold on to that animal card. This goes around so that everybody has an animal card in their deck. Then you go through in the same fashion and give everybody 7 quality cards. And so the quality cards will say something like knowledgeable. And you see there's a little bit of an eye there with what looks to be like a flower maybe coming out. And it says, "What inspires me in you is your wealth of knowledge, or your spontaneity, or your wit, or your emotional intelligence." And you go through that same process where people pick one of their 7 cards, send it over to you. You line the cards up in order from what you think identifies you the least in your opinion to the most. And then you hear the stories from people on why they selected that particular word for you. And again, the feeling you got hearing those stories from people was incredibly touching and very meaningful. I feel like so many times games that you're playing um, are like the meme games, or you're making fun of something, or you're joking, or somebody has to act something out that might be a little embarrassing, and it's all in good fun. But this one was just at a different level, and it's meant to be for team building and for bringing people together. So here's the thing that I'm curious about. And I'm going to switch over and actually read this from a website. It's from Indigenous Foundations. And we talk about totem poles, and that's what you're building here. Totem poles are monuments created by First Nations in the Pacific Northwest to represent and commemorate ancestry, histories, people, or events. They're typically created out of red cedar, and it's a malleable wood, and it's relatively abundant in the Pacific Northwest, and it would be erected to be visible within a community. And they didn't necessarily tell a story so much as it would serve to document the stories and histories familiar to community members. And so I do have to wonder, if we don't understand the history and how meaningful a totem is to a community, what does that mean for playing a game? Even though it's a very feel-good game, how do we kind of rectify that piece? The other piece that I will fully throw in here is I remember a number of years ago thinking spirit animals. I'd love a spirit animal, like something to be uplifting and that I can connect to and learn about myself. And then I realized how important spirit animals are to the indigenous peoples. And so I'm going to read something else. It's from americanindian.su.edu. And that using the concept of a spirit animal while teaching about Native American culture trivializes the Native relationship to the animal world. It's much deeper than what those of us who are non-Indigenous might think when we think, let's pick a spirit animal, let's name our class after this animal. And so the animal's importance, it says here, is also evident in the creation stories of many tribes, and it's often used to share about family, clan, and personal stories. So I think my question for you is, how can we look at having a game that lifts people up, that brings people together in a way that maybe doesn't use somebody else's culture and something that has profound meaning in their culture? Um, Again, I've never participated in a game that had me feeling that good and that connected to people afterwards. But I'm just wondering if there's another way that we can do that. Or maybe I'm not thinking of it correctly. And if you know the history and you honor that history and you know how important it is, that maybe having that perspective is okay. So please let me know your thoughts. Um, and if you've ever played the game, I'd love to hear how it went for you as well. But I look forward to hearing your feedback and your thoughts on this situation.